We surely do hope and pray for Charles to get better. He's such a great lead singer, and we do miss him, but boy, don't we have some good fill-ins. Wow. World class. I always say that about our musicians, and we're about the best in the area, and there's no doubt about that. And you know where that comes from, don't you? When you have a gift and you feel inspired to use your gift, it comes out in amazing, amazing ways. You may be like Jeff, and you may be led to collect coats for the homeless. Thank you, Jeff. So if any of you have any outerwear that you feel like would be of use to someone who has nothing, Jeff has taken it upon himself to pass those out. We had collected a few on Thanksgiving, and he took them with him, and we'll collect more: hats, toboggans, gloves, blankets, you name it, coats, jackets, hoodies. They're all good. The last several weeks I've been talking about how to create a world where you're at peace and you're at harmony. And we've talked about so many ways to do that, and to use your will and to have a willingness to change sometimes your way of thinking. And that may mean that you have changed, you're in your 99th year and you decide to change your way of thinking. That's good, and it's appropriate. If it will lead you to greater joy and peace of heart and mind. Willingness is important. Authenticity, being you, being who you were meant to be, not copying other people or comparing yourself to other people. They have great voices. We admire those. I don't. I have a croaky voice. I wish I had a voice like these angels, but I don't. So I use my voice for what it's best to do without feeling anxious and comparing myself to someone else. We use those spiritual gifts we're given. Sean shared one Sunday that after Katrina, she was rebuilding or deciding whether to rebuild Sean's spiritual liquor store. Excuse me. She was trying to decide what was the best thing to do and how to go about it, and tried a few things, didn't work out so well, and just finally decided, this is my path, and it's how I minister to people. She gives out gifts to whoever comes in there. They're going to buy that liquor someplace anyway, right? We know that. We know that's going to happen. She gives out booklets from Unity. She gives out hygiene kits for women that are homeless. She knows they can't get those supplies anyplace else. Something we don't think about much is the people that are out there. And let's not call them homeless, let's call them houseless. And she mentioned how when she was in a quandary about what to do, the banks were giving loans at that time because they knew people needed to get back into business. And she told her financial advisor, she mentioned that her minister was her financial advisor and helping her with her spreadsheets and her projections for the years to come. I think we had to come up with a 5-year projection, didn't we, Sean? And he was surprised, and he said, I guess it'll be a spiritual liquor store then. But she's sharing her gifts there. We stopped by to see her the other day, Dan and I did, and just such a joyful place and so well run. And she has those beautiful animals, Juliet and her big kitty that welcomes everyone. And Robin works there now. We were so surprised. We ran into everybody that day. Dan and I, it was the strangest thing. We hadn't planned it. We had gone to, I called Teresa Ellis. She's not here this morning, but most of you know her. She likes Indian food at the Indian restaurant there. Used to be on Tea Garden, so Dan and I were having lunch with Teresa, and Matt comes in, and then with another gal we knew, Melissa, and then it's just like every place we went, we ran into somebody, and so we stopped by Sean's, and there was Robin, and said, well, my goodness, we have unitics all over the place. And we are blessed. And I think that, I was thinking this morning that of all of the gifts that we have, faith is probably the most important, and it keeps us on a solid foundation. I heard a story of a man that was going up on the roof and to repair the roof, and he had a stout rope, and he threw it over to his son, and he said, anchor this on something strong, so I'll have a strong anchor in case I need it. And so, unbeknownst to him, it's on the other side of the house. The son ties it to the bumper of the car. And so, mid-morning, the wife, not knowing, she starts the car and takes off. And of course, the man goes flying over the roof, and as you can imagine, not sure if that's true or not, but I would say it's a fantastic example of where to tie your faith. Make sure it's on something strong. Make sure it's solid. Don't put your faith in material things, because they'll let you down. Then one Sunday we talked about that funny story about how to stay in peace and harmony. And one was this, I told the story of the colonials that had gone to India, and whether or not they should have been there. I know they shouldn't, but they were, and it's a part of history, so let's go with it. And so when these proper Englishmen got there, they wanted to play their favorite sport of golf. And so they get over there, and they're, creating these great golf courses, and they're just wonderful, and they're getting out there that day to play golf. And next thing they know, though, they notice there are monkeys everywhere. And every time they hit a ball, a monkey grabs it and throws it someplace else. So they did everything they could to control these monkeys. They tried to fence them out. Well, that's no good. There are trees everywhere. They're going to drop in from the trees. They tried hauling them off. They just came back. They tried everything. And so out of frustration and despair, they finally said, we're just going to have to learn to live with this, aren't we? So they decided to play the ball where the monkey drops it. And that is that sometimes the monkey would pick up the ball and throw it over into a sand pit. But sometimes the monkey would pick up the ball and throw it over into the green, pretty close to the next hole. So we use that as a demonstration of how life is like that, isn't it? Very much like that. And although we pray for certain outcomes, and many, many, many times that prayer comes to fruition, and our prayers do work. But what we can't know sometimes, when we pray this or something better, there may be a different outcome, and it may be better for us in the end. So acceptance was another one of those spiritual skills that we've been talking about in the last several weeks. Patience, persistence, strength, and as I said, willingness is so important. Because so many times, and I've seen so many arguments over the last year or two, or many more than that, but especially the last year or two, about who's right and who's wrong. I've seen families fall apart. I've seen friendships fall apart about who's right. And better than 1,000 words is one word that creates peace. We know that, right? One word. And that's true for you too in your own mind, as you may be controlling thoughts that aren't good for you. You may find that you have negative thoughts that come up a lot, and you must fight those. So I would say the best way to do that is just to accept that they may come up here and there, but the sooner you can just scoot that thought away, if it's a negative one, the sooner you will come back to peace. My husband is a demonstration of someone that has great faith in his own ability to get things done. And he was raised that way. I've told you before that in his family, they were told they could do things and they would do things, and that's just the way it was. And they didn't leave room for not being successful. He did something funny this week, and I have to tell you about it. Everybody wants to hear what my husband has done last, because he's an amazingly funny guy. You know, he's got all kinds of things going on that I could talk about forever, and apparently I do. Because one person came one Sunday a couple of weeks ago, and she said, "I just come to hear what Dan's done last." So he had last several months, he would see something that was on a Facebook marketplace, and he wanted to look at it. And as many of you may or may not know, he collects antique Caterpillar equipment. We're not talking about little toys. We're talking about the big stuff. I don't know how much the biggest stuff weighs, but it's big. 10 tons more. How many? 20? Okay. So he had seen something anyway, he had started borrowing my computer because he didn't want to get on that old Facebook, you know. He didn't want to deal with that, right? So he's been borrowing my computer, and he started keeping it so much I didn't have it to use myself, because he's looking on Marketplace, and on there he can find out all the old antique Caterpillar equipment and other antique rust all over the world. And you know antique rust is valuable. Did you know that? It's much more valuable to these crazy guys than it would ever be taking it to the metal dealer. Ever. Ever. It's worth its weight in gold to them. And it's only worth a certain amount at the metal remanufacturing place. So anyway, it turns out there are a lot of crazy old guys like that, but they enjoy it. You know, if you have a passion for something, that's what I was talking about, passion and love. If you have a passion for something, it's the same thing as love, and it draws something to you. It's what they call ask and ye shall receive. It's that power that goes out from you. It's described in many different ways, depends on where you are as to how it's described. But I finally had enough of his using my computer all the time because he's too proud to be on Facebook, you know. So I said, okay, I'm going to sign you up. Let's choose a name for you, and I won't give it out because he's not going to friend anybody. He's only on there to find this old rusty equipment, okay? So I signed him up on his computer, got him all started, kind of gave him a few lessons on how to do it. And so he had a photo of an old tractor that he bought, and actually it was picked up yesterday. It's an old, what they called a D8. What was the year? 41. An old Caterpillar D8. And he had to have some friends with, it's up in Ohio, and he had to have some friends with a tractor trailer, of course, go get it and load it onto the trailer. But anyway, he had a photo of that old thing sitting in the weeds that he bought from someone on Marketplace. And he joined first day on Facebook. Now, I want you to hear this. First day on Facebook, he joined the Antique Caterpillar Machinery Organization. It's a group, and you can only join if they think you're serious. It's a group, and it's a private group. And on his first day, when he learned how to post a photo, he posted a photo of that old rust in the woods, in the weeds, and he has gotten 700 and how many likes? 770. In the last 2 or 3 days, shares, conversations with people in Australia, England, and all over the world. In France, one of the conversations had to be translated. And I'm just giving you this as a demonstration of life skills. And if you follow your heart and you do the things you love, you may not look very talented to someone else. You can't get up there and play that violin, but you can sure tune a carburetor. And you know what? Sometimes that's more important, isn't it? Do the things you love. Have your faith in that which you should have your faith in, and that is the ground of knowing, our ground of being, whatever we call it. Whatever we call it. But if you do something with a lot of passion and enthusiasm, that's what Charles Fillmore, one of our founders, said. He called one of the great powers zeal and enthusiasm. He said you have to keep those balanced, though, because you may get so enthusiastic you do this and you don't do the other things. There can be a balance. There needs to be a balance. So like with my husband, there has to be a balance. He can do this and go out and enjoy that and have fun and have his passion, but he also has to keep up with his chores at home. There's balance in all things. This earth was created in harmony and balance. all things work in balance with nature, the earth, the rivers, the oceans. They're all in balance. And then when they're not in balance, that's when things go awry. Is that right? So when you create a life of peace and harmony, you realize that you're not creating in a vacuum. Okay? There's a lot of other God-created things and people out there, and they're also creating too. Sometimes they come in for the form of monkeys that are throwing balls away. Sometimes they come in the way of miracles that you can't even put words to. Miracles that we've all seen and we've all known. We talked about those a couple of weeks ago too, those epiphanies that come to us when we know. We just know beyond knowing that there's a God. There's a God out there that loves me beyond measure. And if I will put my faith and my foundation in that God, more and more miracles come my way. And so as I create a life of peace and harmony, I remember to keep my foundation in God, keep my faith there. I use my zeal and enthusiasm for the higher good, to benefit others, because we were all given gifts, and they were not given to us to be used in a vacuum. They were given to us to give to the world. I am here only to be helpful. I am here to represent the one who sent me. I intend to represent love well, and I hope you do too. Thank you for your time.